The quiet heart behind the mammoth night was calm in Los Angeles. Lights flickered across the city like stars trying to compete with the sky. But inside a small corner cafe, Keanu Reeves sat alone, sipping coffee, watching rain trace paths down the window. No cameras to no crowd, just silence, the kind he always found comfort in. He had finished a long day on set. People saw him as the movie hero, the man who saved worlds on screen. But what they didn't see was how tired his soul often felt. Behind the quiet smile, there was a man who carried memories heavier than fame itself. That was when Alexandra Grant walked in. She wasn't dressed like someone who wanted attention. Her hair carried strands of silver that shone under the light. Her hands were stained with paint, proof of an artist who lived for creation, not applause. She ordered tea, smiled politely, and sat at the table beside him. He recognized her, not from a movie, but from an art exhibition years ago. She was the woman who painted emotions people couldn't name. Her work once made him stop and stare, not because it was beautiful, but because it was honest. "You look tired," she said softly, noticing his quiet eyes. Keanu smiled faintly. I could say the same. Their conversation was simple at first, about art, about silence, about how both could heal in their own ways. But what started as two strangers sharing a table became something deeper, a connection that didn't need words, just understanding. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into something gentler. She painted while he read beside her. Sometimes they said nothing for hours, and that silence was enough. People called them an odd pair, but together they were peace. Still deep down, Keanu feared something. Love had hurt him before. He had lost too many people: his best friend, his unborn child, and the woman he once planned to marry. Grief had built a quiet wall inside him, and he promised himself never to love that deeply again. But Alexandra wasn't like anyone else. She never tried to fix his pain. She simply stayed. She understood that healing doesn't come from forgetting, but from having someone who stands beside you when the memories return. Then one night, as they watched the city lights from her studio, she whispered, "You don't have to be strong all the time." Keanu, for a moment, the world stopped. The actor known for strength finally let his guard fall, and in her presence, he found something rare: peace without pretending. But love, as he would soon learn, always tests the brave, because just when everything felt calm, life decided to remind him that even the kindest hearts face storms they never see coming. And this time, it would be a storm that would test not just his faith in love, but his very soul. The storm behind her smilelight started with a silence that felt different. Alexandra had always been calm, quiet, graceful in her way of existing beside Keanu. But lately, he noticed something unusual. She smiled less, her laughter faded faster, and sometimes when she thought he wasn't looking, she pressed her hand against her chest like she was hiding pain. One evening, after dinner, she excused herself to the balcony. Keanu followed quietly. She stood under the dim city lights, eyes lost somewhere far away. He asked softly, "What's wrong?" She shook her head, forcing a smile. "Nothing, just tired." But Keanu had lived long enough to know when a smile was just a mask. He didn't push her, though. He simply placed a blanket over her shoulders and stood beside her. No questions, just presence. That was his way of loving silently, steadily. Weeks passed, and her energy began to fade. She missed art shows, ignored phone calls, and avoided cameras. When she finally agreed to visit a doctor, Keanu insisted on going with her. They sat in the cold waiting room. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to hide it. Alexandra's fingers brushed his, and she whispered, "Whatever happens, don't look at me with pity. Promise me that." He nodded, even though he didn't yet understand why she said it. An hour later, the doctor's words hit like a silent thunder. A rare illness, one that would need treatment, patience, and strength. The kind of battle that didn't care who you were, celebrity, artist, or just human. Keanu didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just held her hand tighter, as if his grip could keep her from slipping away. And when she finally broke down that night, whispering, "I don't want you to go through this again," he wrapped her in his arms and said quietly, "You're not alone this time." The weeks that followed were hard. Hospital rooms, sleepless nights, quiet tears she tried to hide. Keanu became her shadow, bringing her flowers, reading to her, and sitting beside her while she slept. He told her stories, the kind only he could tell, simple, hopeful, filled with love that didn't need to shout. The world outside began to notice. Fans saw photos of Keanu holding her hand, pushing her wheelchair, sitting with her during appointments. Tabloids wrote about Hollywood's saddest love story. But to him, it wasn't sadness, it was loyalty. The kind of love that stays, even when beauty fades and time turns cruel. One night, when the pain was too much for her to hide, she whispered through tears, "You could walk away. You know, no one would blame you." Keanu looked at her for a long time before answering. "You're not a burden, Alexandra. You're my home." And with that, he kissed her hand, the same hand that once painted colors into his empty world. But destiny had more to reveal, because soon, Alexandra would make a decision that would shake Keanu's world and test the very meaning of love and sacrifice. The promise she couldn't keep. Morning sun filled the hospital room with soft light. Keanu sat beside Alexandra, reading a book she loved, his voice calm and steady. She watched him quietly, her eyes tracing every line on his face, every scar time had left. She wanted to remember him like this, peaceful, kind, unaware of what she was about to do. The truth was, Alexandra had made a decision. The doctors had told her the next stage of treatment would be painful and uncertain. It could prolong her life but not guarantee peace. She didn't want Keanu to watch her fade, not after everything he had already lost in his life. She couldn't bear to become another ghost in his memories. That evening, she asked him to take her to the ocean. He didn't ask why, he just drove. They reached a quiet beach at sunset. Waves moved gently, brushing against the shore like soft whispers. Alexandra stepped out of the car and stood barefoot on the sand, feeling the cool wind touch her skin. "Do you remember the first time we met?" she asked. Keanu smiled faintly. "Of course. A rainy night, an art show, and a woman who made silence look beautiful." She laughed softly, but there was sadness in her voice. "You always remember details no one else notices." He looked at her, sensing something he couldn't name. Her eyes looked both alive and far away. "Promise me something," she said suddenly. "Anything. If one day I'm not here, you'll keep living. Not just breathing, living. Painting, writing, smiling. Being you." His heart tightened. "Why are you talking like this?" She didn't answer. She just reached for his hand and whispered, "You gave me more peace than I thought I'd ever find. If love is real, it means setting someone free when it's time." He didn't understand what she meant then. He thought it was fear talking. So he held her tighter and said, "You're not going anywhere. We'll fight this together." She smiled through tears. "That's why I love you. You still believe in forever." That night, after they returned home, she asked him to rest. "I'll be fine," she said softly. "Just need a little time alone to paint." He kissed her forehead and left her in the studio, unaware that she had already planned her goodbye. In the morning, he found the canvas, a painting of two figures standing at the edge of the sea, holding hands as waves rose around them. Beneath it, a note written in her delicate handwriting read, "You taught me that love isn't holding on. It's letting go with grace." Alexandra was gone. She had left quietly, like she lived, without noise, without drama, just peace. Keanu stood before her painting for hours, his tears falling silently. The world would soon know what he had lost, but only he knew what she truly gave him, the courage to love again, even when love meant saying goodbye. And yet, fate was not finished with him, because months later, a single letter would arrive, one that would change everything he thought he knew about her final choice. The letter that changed everything. It was raining again the day the letter came. Keanu had just returned from visiting Alexandra's favorite gallery, the one where her last exhibition still stood like a soft echo of her presence. Her art lived, even when she didn't, and that thought was the only thing keeping him steady. When he reached his doorstep, he found a small white envelope resting against the door. There was no return address, no sender name, only his written in Alexandra's familiar handwriting. His hands trembled as he picked it up. For a long moment, he couldn't open it. Part of him feared what it might say, another goodbye, another wound he wasn't ready to feel. Finally, he sat by the window and tore it open. Inside was a letter, dated 2 weeks before she passed. "My dearest Keanu, if you are reading this, It means I have already gone where you cannot follow yet. Please don't be angry. I wanted to give you peace, not pain. I made choices that felt right for me, but I also carried something you need to know. My last test results were wrong. The illness was spreading slower than we thought. The doctors said there was hope, but I didn't tell you. I couldn't bear watching you live in fear for me every day. You gave me so much love, so much strength. I wanted to leave you with light, not waiting for another heartbreak. You once told me love is loyalty. I want you to know that mine never ended. I painted something for you, a final piece. It's called Gentle Fire. You'll find it in the old art studio, covered in white cloth. Please don't look at it until you feel ready to forgive me for leaving. Love always. Alexandra. Keanu's heart broke all over again. He didn't move for hours. Rain poured outside, matching the tears that refused to stop. She had known. She had chosen peace over pain, and yet she had left him with love even in her final breath. It took him 3 days before he finally went to her studio. The smell of paint still lingered in the air. Canvases leaned against the wall, unfinished, quiet witnesses of her last nights. In the center stood one large painting draped in white fabric. He took a deep breath and lifted the cover. Beneath it was Alexandra's final masterpiece, a portrait of him. Not the movie star, not the public man, but Keanu as she saw him, sitting by a window, holding a book, eyes gentle and tired but still glowing with kindness. Behind him, the faint outline of her stood, one hand resting on his shoulder, like a spirit of peace watching over him. Beneath the painting, she had written just for words, "You were my calm." Keanu sank to the floor, his hands covering his face. For the first time since her death, he didn't cry out of pain, he cried out of gratitude. Love, he realized, doesn't die with goodbye. It lives quietly like art, surviving through color, memory, and the spaces between breaths. But that painting would soon do more than heal him. It would reveal a secret she left behind, something hidden within the canvas itself. The secret inside the painting. Days that followed felt quieter than usual. Keanu spent hours sitting in front of Alexandra's final painting, tracing every brush stroke with his eyes. There was something about it that felt alive, like she had left more than just art behind. The soft colors, the glow around the figures, the faint shimmer near the corner, all felt like whispers trying to speak. One night, as moonlight fell across the studio floor, he noticed something strange. When the light hit the lower right corner of the canvas, faint words appeared beneath the paint, hidden, almost invisible. He leaned closer, heart racing. The letters spelled out a simple message, "Look beneath the calm." His hands trembled. He turned the painting around and found the wooden frame sealed at the back. Carefully, he removed the nails and lifted the backing. Tucked inside was a small envelope, yellowed with paint and time. He opened it slowly. Inside were 2 things, a short note and a small memory card. The note read, "If you are seeing this, then I trusted you to be ready. This isn't goodbye, Keanu. It's a reminder that love doesn't end with loss. I recorded something for you, not a message, but a story. Our story, the truth of what I felt, painted not just in colors, but in words. Watch it when your heart feels strong enough." Keanu single quotes as hands shook as he held the memory card. He took it to the living room, plugged it into his old camera, and pressed play. The screen flickered, and there she was, Alexandra, sitting in her studio, surrounded by her paintings. Her silver hair fell loosely around her face, her eyes calm and kind. "Hi," she said softly, smiling at the camera. "If you're watching this, you're probably sitting there looking serious again. I can almost see you frowning." She laughed gently. He did smile then, through tears. "I wanted to record this because I knew there'd be a day when silence would feel too heavy." She continued, "And I didn't want that silence to be empty. I wanted it to hold us, our laughter, our talks, our peace." She looked down for a moment, her voice trembling slightly. "You once said loyalty is love that doesn't need promises. I believe that now. You stayed when it was hard, when I was scared, when I felt ugly and weak. You made me believe that kindness can be stronger than pain." A long pause followed before she whispered, "Don't close yourself off again, Keanu. Let the world see your heart. That's how you honor me. Live, love, help someone who needs your peace, the way you gave it to me." The video ended with her smiling softly, the sound of rain faint in the background. Keanu sat still for a long time, listening to the quiet hum of the camera. Her words didn't break him. They rebuilt him. He realized that Alexandra's final act wasn't about leaving him. It was about freeing him. That night, he returned to the canvas, placed his hand on it, and whispered, "Thank you, Alexandra." But what he didn't know yet was that her art, their shared story, was about to touch millions around the world, because soon, the painting called Gentle Fire would be discovered by someone unexpected, and it would spark something far greater than he could have ever imagined. The love that outlived time and past, and the painting called Gentle Fire became more than a memory. Keanu decided to donate it to a small art charity that Alexandra once supported, a quiet place that helped children express emotions through painting. He didn't want fame to touch it. He only wanted her art to live where kindness still mattered. But one afternoon, a young journalist named Lily came across the painting while visiting the gallery. She wasn't there for a story. She was simply hiding from her own pain, a breakup, a lost job, a feeling of failure she couldn't shake. Yet when she stood in front of Gentle Fire, she froze. She saw something in those colors, peace, hope, and love that refused to fade. She felt as if the painting itself was whispering, "You can still begin again." Tears filled her eyes. She asked about the artist, and when the curator quietly mentioned Alexandra Grant and Keanu Reeves, her heart stirred. That night, Lily wrote an article titled "The Painting That Teaches You to Stay Gentle in a Harsh World." It wasn't meant to go viral, but it did. Millions read her words. People began sharing stories of their own losses and the quiet ways they learned to love again. The next morning, Keanu woke up to his phone buzzing non-stop. His name was everywhere, not for a movie, not for fame, but for love. Headlines read, "Keanu Reeves' silent devotion to Alexandra Grant moves the world." Videos showed people visiting the painting, leaving flowers, letters, and even sketches inspired by its warmth. He visited the gallery that night when it was closed. The curator had left the lights on for him. The air smelled faintly of flowers. He stood before the painting, watching how the colors still glowed under the dim light. "You see what you've done, Alexandra?" he whispered with a smile. "Your art healed more people than I ever could." And in that moment, he felt her presence again, soft, familiar, like the warmth of sunlight through clouds. Months later, he decided to start something new, the Gentle Fire Foundation, in her memory. It supported young artists, children from broken homes, and people who had lost someone they loved. He didn't want sympathy. He wanted to pass forward the same love she gave him, quiet, loyal, and real. Years went by. His hair turned gray, but his eyes still carried that same calm kindness. Every year, he visited the ocean where they had their last sunset together. He would sit by the water and say, "I'm still living, Alexandra." Just like you asked, the world saw him as a movie legend. But those who looked closer knew, behind every kind gesture, every smile, every quiet act of generosity, was the echo of a woman who taught him that love doesn't end with goodbye. Because real loyalty isn't about holding on forever. It's about carrying love forward, even when the person is gone, and somewhere beyond the waves. Maybe she was smiling too, proud of the man who kept his promise to live, love, and stay gentle.